So today for our lesson, we are going to talk about ratio tables. A ratio table is a tool that's used to organize equivalent ratios. So a couple of things I want to talk about in this little slide is ratio. Ratio is like a fraction. It just compares two similar but different things, such as two shapes but different shapes. So like stars to circles. Equivalent means equal, so the same thing is true with ratios. If I have 1/2 or a 1:2 ratio, 2:4 would be the same ratio. It would be equivalent because in fractions, 1/2 does equal 2/4. So an equivalent ratio is the same thing as an equivalent fraction. With ratio tables, we use scaling to fill in the missing values. Scaling means that we're going to either be multiplying or dividing. Sometimes you have to go backwards and divide. So if we look at this one, the cost per shirt, it was $18 for 2 shirts. Then for 4 shirts, it was $36. For 10 shirts, it was $90. If you notice, we multiplied by 5 and multiplied by 5, multiplied by 2, multiplied by 2. So whenever we're filling in ratio tables, we scale either multiplying or dividing, and whatever we do to the top number, we have to do to the bottom. Basically, that just means that we're multiplying or dividing by 1. Ratio tables can be horizontal, or they can be vertical. So they can go straight across or up and down. In order to complete this ratio, so we need to look and see what did they multiply to in between 3 and 12 so that we can do the same on this side. So 3 times what equals 12? Well, that would be times 4. So over here we need to do the same thing. Whenever we are doing a ratio table, we always go to this set of numbers here. We always take it back to that. We don't ever want to actually look at a pattern, because in this case a pattern wouldn't work. We need to know, how do we go from 3 to 12? Well, we're going to do the same thing over here. So my final answer on this one would be 16, because 4 times 4 is 16, and that would fill in my pattern. Okay, so same on this one. How do I go from 2 to 8? Well, 2 times 4 is 8. So then over here, 3 times 4 gives me 12. So 8/12 is equivalent to 2/3. All right, this one is yours. Go ahead and fill in that question mark. So sometimes they get bigger. So you can walk 6 miles in 2 hours. So if you notice, we have our distance in miles and our time in hours. Make a table of equivalent ratios to show how far you can walk in 4, 6, 8 hours, and 10 hours. So it gives us a whole bunch of things over here, because we've got our 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, and 10. Now, one thing we need to be cautious of is to make sure and put that in the hour side. So we're going to fill in 4, 6, 8, and 10. And then we start doing our equivalent ratios. So how do I go from 2 to 4? Well, I times by 2, so 6 times 2 is 12. How do I go from 2 to 6? I times by 3. 3 times 6 is 18. How do I go from 2 to 8? Times by 4. And how do I go to 10? I'm going to times by 5. So how to fill in a ratio table. All right, so sometimes we end up with bigger numbers. This one says if there are 1,600 calories in 8 ounces of hot fudge, how many calories are in 3 ounces of hot fudge? Well, I can fill in my 3 ounces over here. My problem is 8 does not go into 3 and 3 doesn't go into 8. So what I have to do with this one is actually decide how much is it per ounce. So I have 1,600 calories per 8 ounces. So how many times does 8 go into 16? Well, it goes in 2, and then I can just add those 2 zeros. So for every 1 ounce, there are 200 calories. Now, 1 does go into 3, and we would do 1 times 3, and then 200 times 3 gives me 600. So sometimes we have to simplify in order to solve the table. All right, this one is yours. A party planner said that 3 pizzas will serve about 7 people. How many pizzas are needed for 350 people? So use the ratio table to solve that, and have a great day.